When man becomes disenchanted with just making a living, when he turns to greed, it him every time.
3 weeks before the show was due to be taped, I called up Dion. I said, you know what? I can't do Soul Train, the second one. I can't do this. I can't do it.
Knowing they're never gonna do anything, they're gonna put you on the shelf because Clive Davis paid them to sign you, so you be stuck.
Barry White knew the dark side of the music industry all too well. He tried to warn his friend, the legendary Luther Vandross, about one man in particular, Clive Davis. But did Luther heed the warning? And what was the ultimate cost?
Greed is a funny thing. Once you take a bite of it, it tends to turn on you and start eating you up.
Why did Barry White call out the industry for its evil ways? How did Clive Davis play into this? And what tragic fate befell Luther Vandross after he signed with Davis's label? Stay tuned to uncover the shocking truth. Barry White was arguably one of the first black men to ever own his own record label, besides the great Berry Gordy of Motown Records. In a revealing 1983 interview on Black Focus, Barry White discussed the greed and corruption that led him to leave the industry's major labels. He described how the industry's lust for money and power overshadowed their commitment to the artists and the music itself.
When man becomes disenchanted with just making a living, when he turns to greed, it him every time.
Barry's insights weren't just about the industry at large, they were deeply personal. He had a friend, a rising star named Luther Vandross, who was on the brink of signing with a new record label headed by none other than Clive Davis. Barry saw the red flags and tried to warn Luther, but the allure of fame and success was strong. Despite Barry's warnings, Luther signed with Clive Davis, and that's when things started to go wrong.
3 weeks before the show was due to be taped, I called up Dion. I said, you know what? I can't do Soul Train, the second one. I can't do this. I can't.
Luther Vandross, known for his silky voice and emotional performances, started to struggle. His health deteriorated and his mental state became increasingly fragile. What was the role of Clive Davis in all of this? And why was Barry White so adamant about the dangers of the industry? Let's find out. Barry Eugene Carter, popularly known as Barry White, left an indelible mark on the music industry with his deep bass voice and undeniable charm. Born on September 12, 1944 in Galveston, Texas, Barry White's life journey was nothing short of a roller coaster ride filled with ups, downs, and sensational music that set the mood for romance in the 1970s and beyond. Barry White's rise to fame was not without its fair share of drama and surprises. From his early years in Galveston to his teenage escapades and life-altering moments, here's a juicy look at the man behind the sultry voice and the steamy hits that made him a legend. Barry White's parents, Melvin A. White and Sadie Marie Carter, never tied the knot, which led to a rather unique twist in his life. His mother gave him her last name, but as fate would have it, he later adopted his father's surname. This twist of fate would be just one of many that would shape Barry's remarkable journey. The backdrop for his formative years was the Watts neighborhood in South Central Los Angeles, California. Growing up in this vibrant and sometimes challenging environment, he found solace in music. Barry's mother had a penchant for classical tunes, and young Barry eagerly listened to her extensive collection. His fascination with music began to take root, and he started tinkering with the piano, trying to recreate the magic he heard on those vinyl records. Barry White's musical talents were apparent from a young age, and the story goes that at just 11 years old, he played the piano on Jesse Belvin's 1956 hit single, Good Night, My Love. However, in a surprising twist, Barry denied any involvement in writing or arranging the song during a 1995 interview. He believed that the story had been blown out of proportion by overzealous journalists. While it's true that he and Belvin lived in the same neighborhood, there was a significant age gap between them, with Belvin being 12 years older. Despite the ambiguity surrounding his early career, Barry's talent couldn't be denied. He attended Jacob A. Riis High School, an all-boys academy in Southeast Los Angeles. His voice underwent a dramatic transformation realization when he turned 14, deepening considerably. Barry reminisced, "I had a normal squeaky kid voice as a child. Then, as a teenager, that completely changed. My mother cried because she knew her baby boy had become a man." His deep, velvety voice was a gift that would one day captivate the world, but Barry White's path was not without its detours. At the age of 16, he found himself behind bars for a daring heist involving $30,000 worth of Cadillac tires. In today's currency, that would be approximately equivalent to $290,000. During his stint in jail, Barry had a transformative experience that would set the stage for his future. He heard Elvis Presley crooning "It's Now or Never" on the radio, and that moment left an indelible mark on his soul. Barry credited this encounter with changing the course of his life, but the real turning point came on his 18th birthday. On the very day he was supposed to return to high school, Barry decided to skip class and make a pilgrimage of sorts to the Capitol Records headquarters in Hollywood. He stood across the street from the office, gazing at it for hours, absorbing the lively atmosphere that surrounded it. This experience ignited a fire within him, inspiring him to pursue a career in Hollywood and the entertainment industry, even though he had no formal training in reading or writing music. Anyway, following his release from prison, White abandoned his involvement in gang activities and embarked on a music career during the early 1960s, initially as a member of singing groups. His debut release, Too Far to Turn Around, came in 1960 as part of the Upfronts. Subsequently, he worked with various small independent record labels in Los Angeles, recording singles under his own name in the early 1960s. He was often backed by vocal groups like the Atlantics and the Majestics. It's worth noting that White was mistakenly credited with producing Bob and Earl's 1963 hit single Harlem Shuffle, a claim he refuted in his 1999 autobiography, confirming that Gene Page was the actual producer. In 1965, White took on the role of producer for the track Feel All Right by the Bel Cantos, which was released on the Downey label. In 1966, under the alias Lee Barry, he recorded his first single, Man Ain't Nothin', also on the Downey label. Furthermore, he co-wrote Together Forever, a song released by Pat Powdrill and the Power Drills in 1967. During the mid-1960s, Bob Keane of Delphi Records hired White as an A&R man for his newly established Bronco Records imprint. White began collaborating with the label's artists, including Viola Wills and the Bobby Fuller Four, in various capacities such as songwriter, session musician, and arranger. He played a pivotal role in discovering singer Felice Taylor and arranging her successful song I Feel Love Comin' On, co-written with his friend Paul Politi, which achieved significant popularity in the UK. White and Politi continued to write chart-topping hits for Taylor, including It May Be Winter Outside, But in My Heart It's Spring, and Under the Influence of Love. In 1969, White signed a producer deal with Forward Records of Los Angeles, a division of Transcontinental Entertainment Corporation. White's breakthrough as a producer came in 1972 when he discovered and produced a girl group called Love Unlimited. Modeled after the Motown girl group The Supremes, the members had honed their talents under White's guidance for 2 years before signing contracts with Uni Records. With the help of music industry businessman Larry Nunes, who provided financial support, their album was recorded and presented to Russ Reagan, the head of Uni Records. The album, titled From a Girl's Point of View We Give to You, Love Unlimited, released in 1972, marked the beginning of White's series of albums and singles with lengthy titles. Following Reagan's departure from Uni Records for 20th Century Records, White's relationship with Uni soured, leading to a shift of his production deal and the Love Unlimited group to 20th Century Records. Throughout the 1970s, they produced several hits, including I Belong to You, which spent over 5 months on the Billboard R&B chart in 1974, including a week at number 1, and Under the Influence of Love Unlimited, which reached number 3 on the Billboard Pop album charts. On July 4, 1974, White married the lead singer of the group, Glodian James. In 1973, White founded the Love Unlimited Orchestra, initially intended as a backing band for Love Unlimited. However, White took a different direction and released the single Love's Theme in 1973, which he wrote and performed with the orchestra. The song reached number 1 on the Billboard Pop charts. In 1974, the Love Unlimited Orchestra released their first album, Rhapsody in White, which included Love's Theme. White continued to release albums with the orchestra, and although the orchestra stopped producing albums in 1983, they continued to serve as White's backing band. Barry White was a musical genius, a pioneer, and a visionary, but he was more than just a singer. He was also a businessman. In an industry dominated by white executives, Barry made a bold move by starting his own record label, Unlimited Gold, under CBS Records. By owning his own, Barry had more control over his music. He could make the songs he wanted without someone else telling him what to do.
How do you survive, a black man with a black company?
I am not excluded from that nightmare of piracy and bootlegging.
Barry's decision to create his own label wasn't just about money. It was about control and integrity. He wanted to ensure that his music was produced and marketed the way he envisioned. But as Barry navigated the treacherous waters of the music industry, he encountered the dark side of the business.
Greed is a funny thing. Once you take a bite of it, it tends to turn on you and start eating you up.
In the 1983 interview on Black Focus, Barry spoke candidly about his disillusionment with the industry's greed and corruption. He described how record executives prioritize profits over artistry, often exploiting musicians for their own gain. Barry's words were a stark warning to anyone entering the industry, including his friend Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross was a musical prodigy. With a voice that could melt hearts, Luther quickly rose to fame in the late 1970s and 1980s. His hits like Never Too Much and Here and Now became timeless classics.
My love, there's only...
But behind the scenes, Luther faced numerous challenges. In the early 1980s, Luther signed with Clive Davis's new record label, J Records. Clive Davis was a legendary figure in the music industry, known for discovering and nurturing talent. But for Luther, signing with Davis came at a high cost.
3 weeks before the show was due to be taped, I called up Dion. I said, you know what? I can't do Soul Train, the second one. I can't do this. I can't do it.
After joining J Records, Luther's career initially soared. He released several successful albums and enjoyed commercial success. However, the pressures of the industry began to take a toll on him. Luther struggled with his weight, his health deteriorated, and he became increasingly isolated. Exclusive interviews reveal that Luther was not happy. He felt trapped by the demands of the industry and the constant pressure to produce hits. Friends and colleagues noticed a change in him both physically and mentally. One prominent name that stands out in all this is Clive Davis, a figure synonymous with success in the music industry. As the founder of Arista Records and later J Records, Davis played a pivotal role in shaping the careers of countless artists, but his methods and influence have also been the subject of controversy.
We're gonna promote you and we're gonna do this, knowing they're never gonna do anything. They're gonna put you on the shelf because Clive Davis paid them to sign you, so you be stuck.
Davis was known for his hands-on approach and his ability to spot talent. However, his management style was often criticized for being overly controlling. Artists under his guidance were expected to conform to his vision, sometimes at the expense of their own creativity and well-being. Luther Vandross's experience with J Records highlighted some of these issues. While Davis helped propel Luther to new heights of success, the demands and expectations placed on him were immense. Luther's health problems and personal struggles were exacerbated by the pressures of the industry. Barry White, who had seen the dark side of the industry, tried to warn Luther about these very issues. Barry knew that the pursuit of fame and success could come at a great personal cost. Unfortunately, Luther's story became a testament to the harsh realities of the music business. Vandross passed away in 2005, leaving behind a legacy of beautiful music and poignant memories. His death was a great loss to the world of music, but it also served as a reminder of the toll that the industry can take on its stars. Following his death, however, a lot of his secrets were revealed. Back in 2017, Patti LaBelle was on Watch What Happens Live and got real about Luther Vandross. The two stars were tight, going way back to when they were just starting out. During the interview, the host, Andy Cohen, didn't beat around the bush. He straight up asked Patti about Luther's S orientation. Patti didn't dodge the question. She spilled the tea, sharing that Luther wasn't keen on coming out publicly. He was worried about his mom and didn't want to rock the boat with his lady fans.
He did not want his mother to be, although she might have known, but he wasn't going to come out and say this to the world.
However, Luther wasn't exactly a hidden gem in the music biz. Folks like writer Bruce Vilanch and journalist Michael Mostow had their suspicions. Vilanch even said Luther was deep in the closet and didn't want anyone to know he was in the life. Then there's Lenny Kravitz. He opened up about Luther's struggles, saying Luther felt pretty lonely behind the scenes. Kravitz lived with songwriter David Lasley, who was tight with Luther. Kravitz overheard Luther spilling his heart out about feeling isolated and wishing he could be himself. In his book, Kravitz mentioned overhearing Luther's late-night conversations with Lasley. They were often on speaker, so Kravitz could hear their conversations clearly. Vandross and Lasley would have regular phone calls late at night. Kravitz says he would hear Vandross tell Lasley how lonely he was. According to Kravitz, Vandross also told Lasley that even though he received admiration from female fans, he was more interested in his fans' brothers. When the women were for Vandross, all he could think about was the fact that he would rather be with a man, according to Kravitz. In his book, he says he felt sad for Vandross because he couldn't be himself. But let's back up a bit. Patty and Luther go way back, like Apollo Theater dressing room days. Patty reminisced about Luther surprising her crew with fancy dresses. Luther had style, no doubt. Patty met Vandross when she was still part of the Bluebells. Their first encounter was over 50 years ago at the backstage of the Apollo Theater. She recalled a fond memory of Luther sneaking into their dressing room, acting the part of a designer, presenting them with lavish dresses that, even today, she's not even sure where he got them. In the wake of Patty's revelations, some fans criticized her for outing Luther posthumously. Despite the criticism, Patty's words shed light on the struggles Luther faced in reconciling his private life with his public persona. Ironically, Luther, known for his romantic love songs, never got the chance to live his own love story. According to a 2001 interview he did with Vibe magazine, where he revealed, "I'm still waiting. The time that I've spent being in love has never been reciprocated. Those are just the circumstances. I want to play house," he added. "I want somebody who's not on payroll to care about where I am." That said, Luther Vandross will forever remain one of the most talented vocalists of our time. Patti LaBelle described it perfectly, saying, "There are voices in this world, and once they sing, it's a stamp on everybody. Luther did that, and he's done it." By the time the superstar singer died in 2005, he'd sold more than 35 million records, won 8 Grammy Awards, and performed alongside the likes of David Bowie, Ringo Starr, Beyoncé, and Mariah Carey. He left behind 14 studio albums, all of which went either platinum or multi-platinum, and a collection of timeless hits, including Never Too Much, Here and Now, and Power of Love.
Patti, Miss Patti LaBelle. She's talking about Luther Vandross's.
Patty's bombshell on Luther didn't sit well with millions of people, Wendy Williams included. The talk show host believes the soul singer should have remained mum on the subject since Luther chose not to share that information with the world. She also believes, as his best friend, that speaking on the matter was especially inappropriate. She should have said no comment. If he had asked me something like that, then it's okay for me to talk about it. I didn't know Luther Vandross. He wasn't my friend, but it's not okay to talk about it when it's your best friend, you know? It's like a violation, Wendy blasted LaBelle. Despite all this, one question was still left in the minds of many fans. Was Luther romantically involved with Clive Davis? You see, Clive Davis has made quite a name for himself with his music productions, but now he's being talked about more for his endeavors. After having married and divorced twice, Clive decided he needed to go on a journey of self-discovery to find out if he could be attracted to men too.
I opened up myself after the failure of my second marriage, never having had anything with a man, to see, could I be attracted to the person and not the gender?
This soul-searching made him realize that he isn't as straight as he had imagined himself to be for 50 years of his life.
And I did find that I could be attracted to a man, while I still am very attractive.
After Clive had this realization, he decided he was at that point in his life where he wanted to be with a man.
Then, in 1990, he entered into a monogamous relationship with an unnamed male doctor. That relationship ended in 2004.
Clive says he has never been ashamed of being attracted to men. "I never felt shame. No, I felt puzzled. The subject of orientation really needs much more discussion. It's a status that does exist. But that's not even the part. For several years now, rumors have been speculating that Clive might allegedly be involved in the demise of his artists. Case in point, Whitney Houston. Whitney was signed to Clive. In fact, he orchestrated her comeback in 2009 after years of substance AB and a messy relationship, which ended in a messy divorce. Houston still stands for the best of songwriting, the best of singing, and we know the public wants it, Clive said in 2009. There is a song on this album which is called I Didn't Know My Own Strength, and it really speaks for Whitney. She tumbled, but she didn't crumble. Whitney did not release anything after that since her voice had been ruined due to substance AB, much to Clive's disappointment. But despite the undeniable vocal decline and the unmistakable shadow cast over Whitney's star power, Clive's optimism seemingly remained unscathed. Of course, one might wonder if his rosy outlook was fueled by the substantial coin he continued to rake in from her legacy. It's difficult not to speculate whether Clive's unwavering hope was propelled by the echoes of revenue streams rather than genuine concern. In any case, it was no secret that the music mogul appeared to be more invested in making money than in his protege's well-being. You see, Whitney died on Feb 11, 2012, the day before the Grammy Awards. This was hours before she was to attend Davis's annual pre-Grammy party. At the time, the public and lovers of her music worldwide were devastated by her passing. However, Davis, Whitney's self-proclaimed friend and mentor, still hosted his pre-Grammy party in the Beverly Hilton Hotel on the evening of February 11th. Despite the singer's body remaining inside the building until 12:45 a.m. At the start of the event, he shared a tribute to Houston saying, "By now you have all learned of the unspeakably tragic news of our beloved Whitney's passing. I don't have to mask my emotion in front of a room full of so many dear friends." The Grammy Award winner continued, "I am personally devastated by the loss of someone who has meant so much to me for so many years. Whitney was so full of life. She was so looking forward to tonight, even though she wasn't scheduled to perform. Whitney was a beautiful person and a talent beyond compare. She graced this stage with her regal presence and gave so many memorable performances here over the years. Simply put, Whitney would have wanted the music to go on, and her family asked that we carry on." Whitney Houston's death on the eve of the Grammys in 2012 came as a horrific shock, if not entirely without warning. The platinum-selling singer and actress was to attend Clive Davis's annual pre-Grammys bash at the Beverly Hilton that night, but instead, she died in a room upstairs after accidentally drowning in the bathtub. With all this information being in the public domain, fans can't help but wonder if other artists signed to Clive might have gone through the same. Anyway, Barry White continued to speak out about the industry's flaws until his own death in 2003. He remained a staunch advocate for artists' rights and integrity in the music business. Barry's legacy as a musician and as a vocal critic of the industry's darker side endures. The stories of Barry White and Luther Vandross highlight the need for greater transparency and fairness in the music industry. They also underscore the importance of artists maintaining control over their own careers and well-being. In the end, Barry White's desperate attempts to warn Luther Vandross about Clive Davis and the music industry serve as a cautionary tale. The industry is filled with opportunities, but it also poses significant risks. Anyway, that's it for this video, folks. Bye.